Hi everybody, my name is Danielle Nicole and welcome to Monetary Makeup. Today we are reviewing the new Wayne Goss Luxury Cream Foundation Bundle. So I have everything here, which is the puff, the Weightless Powder, and I have two different shades of the Luxury Cream Foundation. We'll be doing swatches, a wear test, and a demo, as well as a few different comparisons that I'm going to be talking about. And not only am I going to be using this as foundation, but also as concealer. Now, as far as the topic of the day, the reality is, once the pandemic hit, it affected many people on both a personal and a professional level. So today, for the topic of the day, I'm going to give you one of my favorite acronyms to help you hit your third quarter goals. So if you're excited to get started and enjoy the video while you're watching, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and let's get started right now. Now, here's the deal. I am in my mid-30s, I have oily, dehydrated, acne-prone skin, and I'm also starting to get fine lines. So I have a lot of different skin concerns. So point being, I'm pretty picky when it comes to my complexion products. Now, as someone who has a fair to light cool undertone, I'm sure you can imagine how excited I was that Wayne released cool undertones. Now, if you are interested in watching a review of someone with a deeper undertone than me, then I'm going to link below one of my favorite YouTubers who does have a deeper complexion, and her name is Alicia Archer. She is one of my favorite YouTubers. She is hilarious, very thorough. Highly recommend watching her review. So the first product is what's called the Poreless Beauty Puff. Now, this puff almost reminds me of Tati's puff that she released a couple of years ago. Different consistency and shape. However, what I mean is this little flap right here is actually reversible. So on Wayne's puff, you have the velour side, which is meant for powders, and it has a little bit deeper hairs. And then on this side, this is meant for the foundation, and this is the smoother side. And this puff retails for $10 US in case you wanted to pick it up separately. The next product included in this bundle is what's called the Weightless Powder. So this is supposed to be a completely translucent, weightless powder that is meant for mature skin. You get 0.25 grams or 0.88 ounces, and this retails for $28 US separately. Next is the one that I think we are all most excited for. This is called the Luxury Cream Foundation. So I intentionally picked up two different shades because I wanted to test this out not only as a foundation, but also as a concealer. So these shades go backwards, meaning the higher the number, the fairer the shade. There are 12 shades altogether, and Wayne mentioned that if this launch does well, he does plan to expand on the shades. Now, I picked up shade 10 and shade 11, and these two are supposed to have a cool undertone. This foundation retails for $38 US, and you get 1 ounce or 28.3 grams. And if you wanted to purchase this entire collection as a bundle, that retails for $76 US. Now, one of the things I really appreciate about Wayne and the products that he releases is he really keeps mature skin in mind. Now, I have really high hopes for this foundation. It is supposed to be a very full coverage. The pigmentation is very high in these. However, he did mention you can't sheer this out or build it up to full coverage. One of the important factors about this foundation is that Wayne mentioned there is 0 water as far as the ingredients go in it. So I think that's what attests to having such a full coverage. Now, the fairest shade in the collection is shade 12, which is a very, very fair neutral undertone. Wayne mentioned that shade 12 was specifically created, one, where you could lighten up and create your own shade, or you could use it on the high points of the face as a highlighter, or you could use it as a concealer or mix-in. Now, before I show you some swatches and comparisons with other products that may or may not be similar, I wanted to show you what these foundations look like in the pan. And I specifically already swatched these because sometimes with cream or balm foundations, how they look in the pan is a little bit different once you start to actually dip your finger or the product in it. So this right here is shade 10, and this is shade 11. So keep in mind, shade 11 is the lighter one. Now, when I was swatching this product, I thought it was very interesting because I was expecting this to have a little bit of a thicker consistency, and while it definitely does not feel thick, it is a firm product, at least in the pot. Now, here's my thought process. I'm sure there's going to be many dupes or comparison videos coming out, which there typically are with any foundation release. But the one thing I want to mention is this is not a balm foundation. This is a cream. And what I'm holding up right here is the KVD Good Apple Foundation Balm in the shade Light 010. Now, the KVD Good Apple Foundation is a very soft product, so the texture is completely different. So with Wayne's foundation, you can stick your finger in and it's not going to press into the product very much, whereas with the KVD Good Apple, you can press your finger right through to the bottom. Now, the thing about the KVD Good Apple Balm is that, first of all, this is actually one of my favorite foundations. I know that is not a popular opinion, but I quite enjoy this foundation. However, this is marketed as a balm. Now, in my opinion, this is more like a cream formula just because of the texture. Now, I'm not a chemist or a makeup artist by any means, so I could be wrong, but the KVD Good Apple really does remind me of a cream foundation more than a balm. Now, the other swatch comparison I have for you, this is by the brand Stila. Now, this is called the Tinted Moisturizer Skin Balm. So this is a balm, as I just mentioned. However, I do find the texture of the Stila balm is much more similar to the Wayne Goss than the KVD Good Apple foundation. All right, so what you'll see on these swatch comparisons is on the very top is the Stila Tinted Balm in the shade 2.0. The bottom swatch is the KVD Good Apple Foundation in the shade Light 010. And then the two swatches in the middle, the left is the new Wayne Goss in the shade 11, and on the right is the shade 10. So those are just a couple of swatch comparisons for you. I do hope they were helpful. So after I complete the application, if I do have any products in my collection that I do find similar, I will certainly let you know. However, I'm not just going to say that a product is similar just because it has a similar name or texture. With my dupes or comparisons, I really like to make sure that they're very similar across the board. Now, the only thing I have on my skin right now is my skincare, which is moisturizer and a sunscreen. I'm not going to be using any primer today as I don't want it to affect the wear or the finish of the foundation. And in case you're wondering, the sunscreen I went in with today is the new Peter Thomas Roth Max Clear. This is a phenomenal sunscreen for under makeup. It has a slight blurring effect to the skin. However, it doesn't lean matte or dewy, so I don't think it'll affect the finish of the new cream. I feel like I look like a 10-year-old schoolgirl with these clips on, but oh well. Now, I am going to be using a few different application methods just to see which item works best. So that's going to include Wayne Goss New Puff, a damp beauty sponge, and I have some Sanya G and Wayne Goss brushes. All right, so I'm thinking I want to start with shade 10, which is the deeper of the two, and let's get started with a damp sponge. Now, Wayne was very adamant about using his beauty puff, and the one thing I have to mention about this puff, you guys, this does not feel like your traditional cheap puff. You know, the ones that typically come in the compacts are pretty unusable in my opinion, so we'll see how this does on its own, but I do want to test out the beauty sponge and brushes too. So because this is supposed to be a very full coverage product, I'm going to dip into shade 10 very lightly. So I just picked up ever so slightly, just the sheerest amount of product. Okay, yeah, I definitely didn't pick up enough. All right, so I just grabbed a little bit more. And I do have a couple of breakouts pretty much on the lower half of my face, so we'll see how well this does at covering those. All right, so this basically blended out in a couple of seconds. I don't really think I have to do any more blending or pouncing, I should say, with this sponge. So that's looking great on the forehead. Now, the forehead isn't a problematic area for me, but so far, so good. All right, the sponge worked very well for the forehead, and I'm super excited because shade 10 literally seems to be a perfect match. In fact, I feel like it is completely undetectable on the forehead, so that's great. So next, let's go in with Wayne's Poreless Puff for the left half of the skin. Once again, I just picked up a very minimal amount of product. So Wayne mentioned that you're supposed to basically do a swiping motion. So that's what I'm going to do to get started. All right, I need to pick up a little bit more product. Went in a little bit too light-handed. I must say this puff feels very, very soft. And then I'm just going to stamp a little bit on. I have a little bit of redness because I did a salicylic acid treatment. So I just want to dab a little bit on. All right, I'm a little bit surprised. I'm actually a fan of this puff. I was not expecting to be, I've just always used my damp beauty sponges and Fude brushes, but I would say this puff actually works really well. All right, next we are going to try a few different brushes. So the first one I want to go in with is the Sanya G Mini Base Brush. This is a fantastic buffing brush, so let's try this method next. So I'm just going to apply this portion to the nose so we can test out another brush. I'm actually excited because this doesn't seem to be, even though it's a full coverage and very, very pigmented foundation, it's not difficult to work with. So I'm finding it's very easy to build the coverage. So I would definitely recommend going in with less and building it up as opposed to really going ham and dipping in and having too much product. Then you have to try and take some away. All right, so the buffing method also worked very well. I do have quite a porous nose, and in particular around the crease of my nose is usually an area I can tell if a foundation is going to wear well or not. So this is not emphasizing any of my dehydration, so that is super exciting. Next, I want to go in with this Sanya G Lotus base brush. Now, even though this is not a paddle brush, I do find the motion that works best with this brush is similar to a paddle motion. So just want to test out as many different application methods as I can. So I'm going to, once again, go in very lightly. And if we have to build up, we can certainly do that. So I have a couple of red spots right here. Woohoo! Holy cow, did you see that? And I have hardly any product on. I'm wondering if because this is a mix of undyed and dyed goat hair, I believe. I'm done. I mean, this foundation, it is blending out so quick. You know how some foundations you really have to sit there and buff and buff and buff and it just seems like it's not really melting into the skin? This seems to be almost immediately melting in. All right, next for the chin. Wouldn't be a Wayne Goss video if I didn't test out one of his brushes. So this is from the Edit collection and this is his number 2 brush. And this is meant for both creams and powders. So this brush should be a little bit easier to see how much product I picked up. So I did try to go in with a light hand. I have a feeling this is going to be too much, but let's see how this does on the chin area. And I do have a breakout right here. I'm done. You guys, this foundation is so easy to work with. Now, this channel is really geared for busy moms, busy women in general, so I am all about quick, easy application products. So I would say I have a sheer to light coverage. So what I want to do next is a little bit of building and in specific areas. So I'm going to go back in with my damp beauty sponge and just kind of press it into the skin in the areas that I want more coverage. Now this is definitely a very pigmented product, so all I did was tap my sponge in, and this might not look like a lot of product, but for literally going like this, that's how much picked up. But what I'm finding is this is a super, super lightweight foundation. This is probably the lightest foundation I have ever tried. It feels like absolutely nothing is on my skin right now. So I have quite a few spots on my skin. In case I didn't mention, I have these salicylic acid patches that I basically use for breakouts. And what I find is that if I leave them on too long, sometimes they can almost create like a red circle. So I have a couple of those spots all over the skin. And this product is working wonderfully for spot concealing. That's another area of concern that I have for foundations. I really like to be able to spot conceal and not have to go in with another product if I don't have to. So this is working wonderfully for that. All right, next I just have a synthetic brush, and I want to see how this does as spot concealing. So I'm just going to take a little bit on the brush here and see how this works for covering up those areas that I have those red spots. All right, next I just picked up a tiny bit on the tip of my finger. So the brush for spot concealing worked wonderfully. Definitely think I will prefer this method for spot concealing, but I just want to see how the finger does. Oh yeah, they both work the same, I'd say. Now I actually like spot concealing with this puff. I feel like it does a great job at really pressing on those specific targeted areas. The only thing is, because it is a puff, you know, there's only so much precision you can get with it, but I just tried it out, spot concealing with the puff, and it does work. It's just a little bit bigger than I personally like to work with. All right, I am really happy and excited with how this is looking so far. We're going to move on to concealer next. However, I just wanted to mention, I recently reviewed the DanielleNicoleMakeup Yummy Skin Foundation, and I know for so many people it worked wonderfully. It looked beautiful on their skin, but that foundation just didn't work for me. It made my skin look like a dry Sahara desert. It was absolutely terrible. So I'm just super excited that this foundation is looking so good on my oily, dehydrated, acne-prone skin, at least so far. Now, speaking of DanielleNicoleMakeup, she has a new product that just dropped. It's basically supposed to be like a balm product that dries to a powder. And it's kind of interesting because it's almost like you can use it as a primer or you can use it as a foundation. So I just wanted to mention I did order 2 shades, so those should be here in the next few days. So definitely keep an eye out for that video because that product seems to be pretty innovative to me. Now, typically after using so many different application methods, usually I have a favorite way of applying it by now, but I don't think I have a favorite. I think every single area of the skin looks equally good, so all of them worked well, so I'd say just go in with whatever application you prefer. All right, next let's move on to shade 11 for concealer. So I have to go in with one of my favorite concealer brushes. This is the Rare Beauty Selena Gomez brush, and this is one of my favorite because it almost looks like a fingertip. So once again, have the lighter shade 11, so I'm going to dip in very lightly. All right, well, let's see how this does as concealer. Can you see that pigment? I mean, that was immediate payoff. All right, so I would say for any of my shade twins out there, shade 10 for foundation and shade 11 that I'm using right now for concealer, it's a dead-on match. I couldn't get it any closer if I wanted to. Now that's actually really important that these shades match so well because I find as someone who has a cool undertone, there are so many base products that even if they're marketed as cool tone, they end up being orange, yellow, or too deep overall. So these shades are the perfect match for a fair to light, cool undertone. I think part of the reason this product is working so well is because there is so much pigmentation. All you have to do is go in with the lightest hand. So what I'm doing is dipping in just once or twice, and I'm not pressing hard at all, but the payoff you get for color is beautiful. All right, so I know I'm giving you guys a lot of details right now, but I really just want to give you as much information as I can. One of the other things I really like is not only is this product working well for buffing motions, however, if you prefer tapping motions, which sometimes I like to do that, this also works well. I mean, all you have to do is go like this and it covers immediately. All right, that was one of the quickest application methods I've ever had to do. And keep in mind, I was talking and filming at the same time, so I would imagine it would be even quicker if I wasn't filming. But just wanted to show you what my skin and pores are looking like up close. So this is what it's looking like. Notice that it's not emphasizing any of my dehydration. And the coverage on this, I just can't get over the coverage, but how lightweight this feels. It literally feels like there is nothing on the skin. Now, I wouldn't say this leans dewy by any means, but it's almost leaning matte on my skin, almost like a satin matte. So I'll be curious to see if this leans matte on other people. I haven't watched many other reviews, so I'm not sure, but if any of you have tested out this foundation, let us know the type of finish that it is leaning on you. All right, I brought you in super close. If you know me, you know I love testing these products in multiple different ways just to see all the different ways we can really utilize a product for our advantage. Now, I am definitely an eye primer person. I certainly have oily lids. However, Wayne mentioned that you could definitely use this as an eyeshadow primer, so let's give that a try next. So using the same Rare Beauty brush, and I'm going to dip into the lighter shade 11. And I barely picked up any product because, as you know, I love building, don't want to go in with too much. So let's see how this does as an eye primer. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I really prefer eye primers that have a little bit of coverage to them, just because I have so much pink in my skin, and this is covering veins and any discoloration so wonderfully. All right, I know my bangs look crazy, but we're just gonna ignore that right now. I had to move them out of my face. It's so weird getting used to having bangs again. It's been a while, but if you guys know any tricks for bangs, definitely let me know down below. All right, if you have not tried out the Tourmaline palette, I highly recommend it. Even though it has reds, they lean a little bit cool tone. So overall, this is just a staple in my collection. So I'm not going to walk through this eye tutorial real specifically today. I really just want to see how the foundation does as an eye primer. So I'm just using a rougher brush here and dipping into the brown to get started. I got a little bit of sunscreen in my eyes today, and they are burning right now. So if they're a little bit red, that's why. All right, that's working out well. Let me get the other eye on. All right, next I'm tapping on the gold shade on the inner half of the lid, and that's working out fine so far. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this taupey red just on the outer corner. I'm just going to use my finger and then I'll blend it out a little bit. All right, you guys, so just for the sake of time, I quickly went in and finished up the eye look. Pretty much just added a little bit of that brown shade to the lower lash line, added a little bit of mascara. Just heads up, this is definitely going to be in a video soon. Essence has a new mascara called Double Trouble, and it's a good one. But what I was noticing when I applied my mascara, I basically rested my hand right here just for a quick second, and I did notice a foundation removed in that one spot. So this foundation is definitely not transfer proof, which is fine because it doesn't claim to be. So before I finish up the rest of my complexion products like blush and highlighter, I do want to go in and set the face with Wayne's new powder. So because I am acne prone and I currently have breakouts, I work really hard to cover those acne spots. So if I were to go in with a brush and buff the powder on, like many people do, that would unfortunately remove all the work I just did covering those spots. So my preferred method of application for powder is using a damp sponge. So for today, that's what we're going to do. Ooh, okay, so I can already tell this is an extremely fine milled powder. It actually reminds me of the By Terry Hyaluronic Hydra powder. So if any of you have ever tried that powder, all you do is open the cap, and because it's so finely milled, powder goes everywhere. This one wasn't quite as bad, but I can definitely tell very finely milled. All right, so I'm kind of dotting it on, and then I will blend it in just so it didn't go everywhere in that one spot. And for the nose, I always like to use the tip of the sponge. So next, let's go in and set the under eyes. I completely forgot that I put on mascara, so I'm probably going to smudge that, but that's all right. And I always go in with a very light dusting of powder. All right, this powder looks wonderful on the skin. It's definitely not a luminous powder. I would say it leans more on the matte side, but it's definitely not a flat matte powder, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't feel like it sucked the life out of my skin. I feel like I still have a natural glow underneath the foundation and all of that. So yeah, that went on well. All right, you guys, well, this is the final look. I really love this Tarte lip gloss. The shade is perfect for the look I have going on today. So this is definitely a winner for sure. So yeah, this is what the skin is looking like with the new Weightless Powder and Cream Foundation. All of the products went on beautifully, didn't have any issues with blending. It's not emphasizing any of my textures. So overall, I think the skin looks great. All right, well, I will see you guys in just a second for the topic of the day, and then I will meet you back here in a couple of hours for my final thoughts and a wear test. So we are almost halfway through the second quarter of 2022, and I don't know about you all, but as far as my business goals, I always make them quarterly. Now, I think it's really no secret that the pandemic certainly had a lasting effect, not only on a personal level, of course, but also on a monetary and business level. And I think folks are still suffering from when it first hit. So if you find yourself a little bit down and you're not really sure how to set your goals in order to reach them for the third quarter, then I have an acronym I wanted to share with you. So whenever I create any of my business goals, I always use the acronym SMART. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So creating SMART goals just helps to have a little bit more realistic approach. So if you didn't hit your personal goals for 2021 or the second quarter of 2022, then perhaps creating SMART goals will help you hit yours. All right, that was my SMART acronym. Next, I will see you back here at the end of the night for my final thoughts and a wear test. All right, you guys, so it's been about 3 hours since I last checked in with you, and I definitely have some great news to report. Now, I apologize that I'm not able to do a full 8 or 10 hour wear test. It's just getting late. I have to cook dinner. I've got to help my daughter do her homework and all of that good stuff, but it's definitely been enough time where I feel like I can come to a conclusion. So let me bring you in a little bit closer. All right, so I wanted to show you up close what my skin is looking like now that it's been a few hours later. So let me do a little pan so you can take a look. All right, so I just have to say, I have been searching for a new full coverage foundation that works well on my oily, dehydrated, acne-prone skin. And I have to say, when I tried the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Foundation, I was so hopeful that that was going to be a beautiful foundation, but it just wasn't. It did not work well with my skin type. So of course, when I heard about Wayne's new launch, I was ecstatic, especially because he is really known for creating products that work well on mature and textured skin. So I don't know what you guys saw when I just did that close-up, but as far as what I am seeing in the monitor, I have to say it looks almost exactly the same as when I first applied it. This foundation is just so beautiful, and there's something so unique about this texture. As I mentioned before, the KVD Good Apple Balm is one of my holy grail foundations. However, that one definitely leans more on the hydrating and dewy side for me, whereas this one leans a little bit more satin or satin matte, I'd say. And I'd say one of my most favorite characteristics about this product is that this foundation is incredibly lightweight. Now, even though it's been a couple of hours and my oils are starting to come through, if any of you out there have oily skin, you know that once your oils start to come through, usually your foundation can start to feel very heavy and start to look cakey. This one does not do that. It works wonderfully for spot concealing. It looks great as a buildable foundation. And also, I don't know if you can tell, but there is hardly any creasing under my eyes. And I have to attest that too, because you need such little product to get such full coverage. I think that's why, because you simply don't need to apply a ton of product, so hence there's less product to crease. I just love the overall finish of this. I feel like it blurs the pores, and also I use so many different application methods. So I think this is one of those products that regardless if you like using a brush, if you like using a sponge, or if you like using Wayne's new puff, I think you're gonna be happy regardless of the application. So there's definitely a lot of versatility with these products. You can mix them to create your own shade. You can use it as foundation. You can use it as concealer. You could use the lighter shade as basically a matte cream highlighter. So the options are really endless. Now, the powder. I really love this powder too. It's definitely not a flat matte. However, it is certainly not a luminous powder. So if you're looking for a more luminous powder, this might not be the one for you. But if you are looking for a powder that is incredibly lightweight on the skin, helps you control oils, but at the same time doesn't dry out the skin, then this could be the one for you. Now, as far as the puff goes, I'm kind of torn on recommending this because do I feel like it is necessary? No. However, I do like the way this puff applied the cream. So it's one of those things where if you feel like adding an extra $10 to your cart to try it out, then I'd give it a shot. Well, if you did enjoy today's video and topic of the day, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and definitely hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm going to be having a ton of content coming soon, one of which is the new Danessa Myricks Balm Powder. And if you are a sunscreen junkie like me, Shiseido recently reformulated this Urban Environment SPF, so this review is going to be coming soon too. Alright, well I do hope you enjoyed today's video. Please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I just want to thank you all so much for watching another one of my videos, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye guys!